Big cuts, extreme cuts, draconian cuts. That's been the response to the House Republicans' budget plans. Many people say they go too far, and we'll hear that argument later on this program. But amidst all these big cuts, there's still one area of the budget where the Republicans cut almost nothing. They keep President Obama's defense spending plan. Apparently, even the budget cutters don't think the military can be cut. But it can, says the Cato Institute, which has proposed more than $1 trillion in cuts over 10 years. Ben Friedman helped prepare that report. So, $1 trillion, that sounds like it would make us vulnerable.
Well, you got to cut commitments. So if you made all those cuts, if you cut $1 trillion without cutting what we're doing in the world, that would cause problems. It would overburden the force. But you can do it if you say we're going to have fewer commitments in the world. We're going to defend fewer rich countries and bring a lot of our troops home.
Well, commitments. The commitments we hear about are Libya, Afghanistan, and Iraq. But it's true, we have troops in many other places.
Certainly we ought to have fewer wars, but we got troops defending Europe from nothing that have been there since the Cold War. We have a lot of troops in Asia and Japan and South Korea defending rich countries that can defend themselves.
And just how many amazed me that we have 50,000 troops in Iraq, but 54,000 in Germany. I thought that war was over. 34,000 in Japan, 28,000 in South Korea. But people would argue we have to protect them against the North Koreans.
They got 30 or 40 times the GDP of North Korea. It's hard to say because it's hard to divide by zero. I think the South Koreans can defend themselves. It's not 1955 anymore.
Congressman Ryan's plan claims $178 billion in savings, supported by Secretary Gates. Sounds like a lot.
I would call those phony cuts, but that would be too kind. They're borrowed phony cuts. The Secretary Gates and the President are not actually cutting defense spending. They're cutting the rate of defense spending growth. So we're still going to have a bigger defense budget under Ryan's plan or Gates's plan in the next 10 years than we had in the last 10 years. And that was the biggest defense budget, more than we've spent on defense in any decade since World War II.
The Heritage Foundation says we should spend more on defense, and if we don't, the threats to us and our allies will grow.
The Heritage Foundation is always going to come up with threats to justify the defense budget. They love defense spending, love it for its own reasons, and when all the threats we have now disappear, they'll invent new ones. So I wouldn't listen to them on this stuff.
29 Republicans have sent this letter to Congressman Boehner saying we need more spending to fight a spectrum of threats.
I bet 28 of them have a defense base or production facility in their district, so I think that's pork barrel politics.
This is just cynical. Give more money to the district. Former Senator Jim Talent, we have to spend on defense to balance the China threat.
We spend more than 4 times what China spends on its defense budget. They have 0 carrier battle groups. We have 11. So I think we're well out in front of the Chinese, and that will be the case for quite a long time.
But who will keep the world safe if not the United States? Ambassador John Bolton told us we're underspending on defense. We have to modernize or we'll be weakened.
It's not our job to keep everybody in the world safe. It's the job of the governments that those people elect or that they have. So the world will keep itself safe. The English will keep the English safe, and the people in Asia will keep their own areas safe.
But in the Constitution, I'd like to have one around. I criticize all the things government is doing, but one of the things government is supposed to do is keep us safe, protect us from foreign enemies. Fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here, was the Bush argument.
If you look in there in the Constitution, it says provide for the common defense. It doesn't say provide wastefully for the common defense. And the common defense is our defense, the American defense, not the defense of the world, not the defense of democracy everywhere. So the Constitution is great, but it doesn't tell you how much you ought to spend on defense.
The Cato plan would just say get out of Afghanistan.
Well, we get out over a couple years, but yeah, we think those sorts of wars that are fought in the vain attempt to make governments where there aren't any are just a bad idea.
Al Qaeda will go back in and rebuild and come and kill us.
I don't believe that. I think that we have the military technology to bomb any camps that would show up in Afghanistan. We didn't have that technology in the 1990s, and I think on top of that, the Taliban might have learned a few lessons about whether or not it's a great idea to let those guys back in.
All right, well, thank you very much. Ben Friedman from the Cato Institute. Coming up, Senator Rand Paul. He's ready to cut more. But before he does, I'm hearing that Republicans want to let sick people die, and old people, too. We'll debate that when we return. As soon as Republicans took the House last November, they started talking about cutting government. And they came up with a plan that would cut discretionary non-defense spending. Give me a break. It's about 15% of the budget. Finally, this week, they're talking about the big stuff, entitlements.
If we don't reform spending on government health and retirement programs, we have zero hope of getting our spending, and as a result, our debt crisis, under control. Next year, the government spends 68 cents out of every dollar you pay in taxes just to pay for these health and retirement programs and interest on the debt. By the year 2025, they will consume every penny of every tax dollar you send to Washington.
That's not good. Every penny gets swallowed by entitlements plus interest in just 15 years. So hooray for those Republicans. They're braving that third rail of politics, proposing to do something Grace Marie Turner's been talking about for years. She's president of the Galen Institute, a think tank that specializes in health care policies. So you must be happy about this, finally.
Absolutely. We are never going to get to a balanced budget if we don't tackle entitlements. And hooray for Paul Ryan for doing this.
All right, let's break down his plan. He repeals Obamacare, and I assume you like that idea because you wrote a book that says why Obamacare is wrong for America.
Absolutely. This is going to make our budget problem so much worse, besides destroying our healthcare sector. We absolutely must start with that as a premise and then move on to the other entitlement programs as well to bring them into the 21st century.
His plan preserves existing Medicare for people age 55 and older. The rest of us, the rest of the young people actually, I'm over 55, get money to purchase a private plan.
It looks like the health insurance that members of Congress have. Members of Congress have a defined contribution that they can use to pick from a range of health plans that are competing for their business. In Medicare Advantage, the same thing is happening. We know this works, that we can bring down costs, we can give people more choices, we can coordinate care, give people better benefits.
We don't know that this works. I don't see the private insurance companies bringing down costs, and people like Medicare.
They are not competing for the business of seniors. Seniors are smart shoppers. We know this from the Medicare Part D plan, where they are individually picking the plans. They have brought the cost of this program down by 30%. Lower than it was expected to be, because seniors are smart shoppers, they're getting the benefits they need, and plans are competing for their business on value and price. The same thing could happen with overall Medicare. Give them a better benefit than they're getting today and save the taxpayer money. This is a win-win proposition.
By making them consumers, everybody wins.
Yes.
They choose what they want and companies compete. That lowers prices. But, for example, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz says the Republican path to poverty, she calls it, is like a tornado through America's nursing homes.
Obamacare is a tornado through the nursing homes. The chief actuary for Medicare has said that 1 in 6 Medicare providers are going to go bankrupt because of the cuts in Medicare. This is taking money out of Medicare, $500 billion, $200 billion in additional taxes, not to make Medicare a better program, but to create 2 new entitlement programs that we can't afford. No wonder seniors are mad about this program. They absolutely should be. Obamacare is going to destroy Medicare much faster than even the current trajectories. The only way to save it was with these reforms.
Nancy Pelosi tweeted the GOP path to poverty budget eliminates guaranteed benefits for seniors.
Medicare, as it is going over a cliff. It is going to
guarantee. But it's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed as long as you can tax people at the rate of 80% of their income. We cannot do that. We cannot sustain this open-ended entitlement to benefits that has no incentive for the private sector to deliver those benefits more efficiently. All they do is follow the rules and regulations, bill more for less efficient care, and the taxpayers going broke.
Let's talk about the Medicaid plan. It would eliminate this matching fund deal where the federal government gives the states money and the states run the program. What's wrong with that?
The problem is that it's another, almost a Ponzi scheme, where the more the state spends, the more they get from the federal government. So what incentive do they have to make this more efficient? Rhode Island got a block grant in the last few days.
The block grant just means a fixed amount of money saying you run it.
Without having to jump through all of these regulatory hoops that Washington sets up, you figure out how you can deliver care more efficiently and better to the people who are eligible for this program, lower income seniors primarily, and moms and babies. Figure out how you can use the resources of your state to meet the needs of citizens.
Maybe they'll be bad at it.
Well, then the citizens will throw them out of office. You're closer to the people. Let that money be spent by the people who know their citizens. It's easier to throw out a governor and your state legislator than it is to defeat Congress and get Congress to change the rules of this antiquated program.
Also, we have 50 states. They can be laboratories for experimentation.
Absolutely.
We can see what works.
And
doesn't work.
We've seen a lot of good examples of things that do work. And as I said, with Rhode Island, they're actually saving money, covering the same number of people, and delivering better benefits. What's wrong with that picture?
Representative Chris Van Hollen called it a blank check to governors with a license to cut support.
What arrogance. I mean, that's exactly the same kind of arrogance that makes Washington think it knows best. It doesn't know best. The people who are closer to their citizens and the needs of their citizens need to be tailoring these programs to keep people out of nursing homes, for example, if they want to stay in their homes, and provide better home care. But Washington's rules make that very difficult. All the governors are saying is, give us flexibility. We can do a better job of spending that money to provide care to the people who need it.
Well, I hope someday they are given a chance to try. At the moment, these reforms have to go through a presidential veto probably, but who knows? I shouldn't say that. Thank you, Grace Marie Turner.
Thank you, John.
Next, Senator Rand Paul. He's proposed even bigger cuts, and actually his balanced the budget in 5 years. We'll find out how he does it next.